Big shock to the auto industry. All major electric vehicle makers demand the return of gas-powered cars. Volkswagen, Toyota, Ford, General Motors, and others come together in a joint statement expressing frustration and dissatisfaction with the EV market and calling for a reversal of policies favoring EVs. Watch to find out more. The EV makers claim that they have been facing a number of problems and obstacles in the EV industry. Firstly, low and slow demand from consumers is a major issue. Consumers are reluctant to switch from gas cars to EVs due to the high costs, limited range, and lack of infrastructure of EVs. According to a report by Car Gurus, EV sales growth slowed sharply throughout 2023, rising just 1.3% in the final quarter, as high interest rates and inflation put consumers off. EV inventories have increased by 506% from a year ago, with EVs sitting on lots for longer, it said. EVs sit on the market for an average of 82 days versus 64 days for gas-powered vehicles, it said. Secondly, high and rising costs of production and maintenance are driven by the scarcity and volatility of the raw materials and components needed for EVs, such as batteries, metals, and chips. According to a report by Bloomberg New Energy Finance, the prices of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and copper, which are essential for EV batteries, have surged by more than 50% in the past year due to the supply-demand imbalance and geopolitical tensions. The prices of semiconductors, which are vital for EV electronics, have also soared by more than 100% in the past year due to the global chip shortage and the trade wars. Thirdly, intense and unfair competition from gas car makers is another issue. Gas car makers are able to offer cheaper, more reliable, and more familiar products to consumers, and they benefit from the existing infrastructure and incentives for gas cars. According to a report by RMI, the market share of internal combustion engine cars is going to fall to a level of 38% of sales by 2030. But it is still going to be a significant and dominant force in the automotive industry. The report also says that gas car sales peaked in 2017 and have been falling at 5% a year since then. But they are still going to be between 14 million and 38 million cars a year by 2030. Despite these challenges, the EV makers argue that they have been investing heavily and innovating rapidly in the EV sector. They aim to meet the growing environmental and social demands for cleaner and greener mobility and to comply with the stricter policies and regulations that aim to phase out gas cars and promote EVs. The EV makers point out that they have been leading the development and adoption of electric and autonomous vehicles, and that they have been envisioning a future of zero emission and zero accident mobility. However, the EV makers say that they have not been rewarded or recognized for their efforts and achievements. They have been facing a lack of support and appreciation from the governments, the media, and the public. The EV makers complain that they have been subjected to harsh and unreasonable scrutiny and criticism, and that they have been scapegoated and vilified for the problems and challenges of the EV industry. Some EV makers are demanding that the governments and authorities of major markets, including the EU, the US, China, and India, reverse their policies and regulations that favor EVs over gas cars. They are urging the governments to stop banning or restricting the sales or use of gas cars and to allow consumers to make a free and rational choice between gas cars and EVs based on their preferences and needs. They also request that governments stop subsidizing or incentivizing the purchase or ownership of EVs and remove tax breaks, rebates, credits, or exemptions that give EVs an unfair advantage over gas cars. Additionally, they demand that governments stop imposing or increasing taxes or fees on the production or consumption of gas cars and eliminate the tariffs, duties, levies, or penalties that penalize gas cars and their makers. Finally, they are requesting that governments stop mandating or enforcing standards or targets for the emissions or efficiency of gas cars and relax the rules, limits, or quotas that constrain gas cars and their performance. The EV makers clarify that they are not against EVs or the transition to cleaner and greener mobility. They are willing and able to continue producing and selling EVs as long as there is genuine and sustainable demand and support for them. However, the EV makers are also not against gas cars or preserving diverse and competitive mobility. They are ready and eager to resume producing and selling gas cars as long as there is a fair and reasonable opportunity and incentive for them. The makers of EVs hope that their statements and demands will be heard and respected by the governments, the media, and the public. They believe that this will lead to a constructive and positive dialogue and action that will benefit the automotive industry, the environment, and society. The statement and demands of electric vehicle makers have sparked a huge debate in the automotive industry, environmental movement, and society at large. Various parties and stakeholders have responded to these demands and expressed their opinions and positions. Governments and authorities in major markets have rejected and condemned the statements and demands of the EV makers. They have reaffirmed and reinforced their policies and regulations that promote EVs over gas cars. Governments and authorities are committed to phasing out gas cars and protecting the environment and public health. They are disappointed and outraged by the statements and demands of the EV makers and will not tolerate any attempts or threats to undermine their policies and regulations. The media and public have shown a range of views and attitudes towards the statements and demands of the EV makers. Supporters and sympathizers have engaged in heated debates and discussions about the merits and drawbacks of EVs and gas cars. Some have taken actions, such as buying and driving EVs or gas cars, boycotting or protesting against them, or ignoring and avoiding them altogether. Gas car makers have welcomed and applauded the statement and demands of the EV makers. They have seized and exploited the opportunity to regain and expand their market share and competitiveness. Gas car makers are willing to cooperate and collaborate with EV makers by offering and providing them with gas cars and components at a reasonable and attractive price and quality. Environmental groups and activists have denounced and protested the statement and demands of the EV makers. They have urged and pressured governments, the media, and the public to reject and resist them. Environmental groups and activists consider the statement and demands of the EV makers to be a betrayal and sabotage of the efforts and achievements of the EV industry and the environmental movement. They will continue to advocate and campaign for EVs and against gas cars. The statements and demands made by the EV makers have had a significant impact on the automotive industry, the environmental movement, and society as a whole. The implications of these demands are far-reaching and have led to change and challenges in various sectors. The EV industry has been shaken and weakened by the statement and demands, leading to a decline in sales, profits, market share, competitiveness, and innovation. The industry has also suffered a loss in reputation and credibility, as it has been criticized for being unrealistic and unsustainable, as well as hypocritical and opportunistic. On the other hand, the gas car industry has been boosted and strengthened by the statement and demands, leading to a rise in sales, profits, market share, competitiveness, and innovation. The industry has gained in reputation and credibility, being praised for being reliable, affordable, and adaptable. The environment and climate have been harmed and endangered by the statement and demands, leading to a setback in goals and targets, policies and regulations, and efforts and achievements. The health and safety of the environment and climate are at risk, as they are exposed and vulnerable to the emissions and impacts of the gas cars and to the resistance and opposition of the EV makers. Consumers and society have been confused and divided by the statement and demands, leading to a dilemma and tension in their choices and preferences, behaviors and actions, and opinions and attitudes. The consumers and society have a responsibility and opportunity to play a role in the impact and influence of these demands, as well as their values and interests, being involved and affected by the statements and demands of the EV makers, and by the reactions and responses of other parties and stakeholders. The statement and the demands of the EV makers have been huge news and a huge surprise, as they have revealed and challenged the reality and the difficulties of the EV market, and they have called and demanded the return of gas cars. The statement and the demands of the EV makers have also been a huge controversy and a huge scandal, as they have contradicted and betrayed the expectations and the demands of the environmental movement, and they have provoked and angered the governments and the authorities. And that's it for this video. We hope you enjoyed watching it and learned something new. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of our future videos. We have more amazing videos coming up, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching.